Welcome to Love Your Life After Divorce, the podcast where you'll learn everything you need to know to rebuild your life after divorce from the inside out. Let's dive in. Hey there, friend. How's everything going with you? I gotta be honest and say I'm struggling a little bit these days. It is fall season here, and I may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but I do get a little seasonal depression when fall rolls around and the time changes and it's getting darker earlier. It's 5 p.m., but it feels like 10 p.m., and all I want to do is stay in some sweatpants and stay inside my house and curl up and be lazy and just not do much and eat all the carbs. I feel like I'm like a bear in the winter. Like I'm just want to hibernate and pack on some pounds. Anyway, I don't love the fall and I've just been tired and dragging and blah lately. And I was thinking about it today when I was driving around 5:30 and it was dark and I was thinking, can I go to bed? Is it too early to go to bed? And I just was reminded that this is a season and that all seasons come and go. And it reminded me of, especially right after my divorce, when my life was the absolute worst that it has ever been in my entire life. And I really wondered if I was going to make it through. Some days I cried so much that my eyes were just so puffy. They stung. I looked awful. Like I just felt just so not myself. And I look back at that time and it feels like so long ago, although it was only about 4 to 5 years ago, when that happened. I don't know. It just reminded me today when I was thinking about the difficulties that I'm now having, which aren't really that big of a deal. It's just a minor bad mood or being more tired than normal or being more down. But my point is that all feelings come and go. All seasons of life come and go. And I think that's good news and bad news, I guess, because when things are going really well and when you have a season of life that just feels so peaceful or so exciting or so meaningful, that also changes. Life is always changing. And I just think that's good to remember when you're going through a hard time. So I just want to encourage you today that if you are in that place where you're still really recovering from getting a divorce and it's still fresh, you still have a lot of painful emotions, you're still wondering how your future is going to turn out. I promise you, you will not be in this place forever and things will get better. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast lets me know that you are doing some things to help yourself. And so I just want to encourage you to continue finding ways to improve your life, to improve your outlook, your mindset, to take charge of your life and decide what you want it to be like. And that's basically what I want to talk to you about today. I ran across a quote the other day that I've heard before, but it kind of sparked my mind to remember some things. And I just want to share it with you. It's from a poem from Mary Oliver. You may have heard it before, but in one line of the poem, she says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" That quote has been used a lot because, as you can imagine, it just invites us all to ponder that question of what are we doing with our one wild and precious lives that we have? We each get one life to live. We have no idea how long it's going to last. We don't really know how it's exactly going to go sometimes. Things happen that we can't control. But there is a lot that is actually within our control. And it reminds me of when I decided to get a divorce. So many divorce stories are unique, they all happen differently. But for me, and I know a lot of you can probably relate to this, but I had been unhappy in the marriage for many years. By the time we got a divorce, I would say I was unhappy in the relationship for about 12 years out of the 17 that we were married. And so it was a long time coming. And it was the kind of thing where I kept trying to convince myself that it was good enough. I kept holding out hope that certain things would change, that we would be more connected or closer. We went to counseling several times. Like there was that long period of wishing and hoping that things would be different. But then there was that moment. There was that moment that I had a realization that I wanted a divorce. And that moment came for me at a really interesting time. My ex-husband and I were on a vacation without our kids for the first time, I think in like 10 or 12 years that we had been on vacation without our kids. And we were with two other couples at this very romantic tropical location at this all-inclusive resort. It was gorgeous, and for the first time in a long, long time, I had no responsibilities. I had no children to take care of. I had no house to clean. I had been a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years and was actually also a homeschooling mom, and so I was with my kids all the time. Now, I chose this. My ex-husband and I agreed, but I wanted to stay home. I wanted to homeschool. And honestly, I don't have any regrets about that. I am so thankful for the time that I was able to spend day in, day out with my children. I think, there were so many positives to that situation, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I loved being with my kids. However, I also lost a bit of myself in that experience. Again, going back to the seasons, I had just told myself that, being a mom is about taking care of other people. And so I really put myself on the back burner. I felt slightly guilty for even like going out to dinner with friends once a month or going to the gym, things like that, that now looking back, I'm like, good grief, I needed some self care. I needed some time away. But I was trying so hard to be the perfect mom and to give my kids exactly what they needed. And I thought what they needed was unconditional love and attention and acceptance and activities. And so that was my life for so many years. And then we go on this vacation, and I felt like I came to life. I felt like a part of me had been dormant for many years. And on this vacation, where my one goal was to relax and to have fun, and I didn't have responsibilities, and I didn't have to make the food that we were eating, and I didn't have to clean up the dishes. It felt amazing. I felt so invigorated. I had such a great time of just enjoying all the activities at the resort. And while I was on that vacation, it occurred to me that one day my kids would grow up and leave, as they should. And then what? What would I be doing with myself then? And I was with my ex-husband on this trip and realized I'm not really enjoying spending time with him. And I want to make it clear that my ex-husband is an amazing person. I have so much respect for him. I think he's a wonderful person. He's a great dad. I'm extremely lucky, I know, that I can say that about my ex because a lot of people cannot. But I want to just be clear on that because the fact that we weren't compatible or that I didn't feel like I wanted to be married to him anymore doesn't mean anything bad about him. And so I just want to make that clear because again, I think he's a great, great guy. But on that trip, it just became crystal clear to me that that's not what I wanted for my future. And I wrestled and wrestled, and I felt so guilty because he wasn't awful. He wasn't abusing me or the kids. He didn't have an addiction. He wasn't cheating, all the major things you hear that are reasons people get divorced. That wasn't our story. But I knew in my heart that it just wasn't the right fit. And I had to ask myself that question. What am I going to do with my one wild and precious life I have? And I knew in that moment what I needed to do for myself, and that was to get out of the marriage. And since the divorce, I have asked myself this question so many times in different ways because I'm constantly wanting to be authentic. I'm constantly striving to live a life that is in alignment with who I am. I want to be intentional. I don't just want to let my life happen to me. I don't want to just keep going with something just because I've already started it. And I think that's so easy to do in so many areas. It's so easy for us to just stay in a job because we're used to it and we know what we're doing. And day in, day out, it's comfortable. Even if we don't love it, even if it's not fulfilling, even if we're not making enough money, it's just easier to just stay with it, right? And the same is true with marriage. It's just easier to stay married. Getting a divorce is no joke, it is not easy. But sometimes we have to make those hard decisions when we know that we aren't living our true lives. We aren't living life to the fullest. We aren't living in a way that feels authentic or aligned. I think it's so important to ask ourselves what we want to do with our lives instead of either just following along with what society has told us, or our parents' expectations, or our church's rules or regulations. It's so common for the first part of our lives to be living for other people. It just makes sense, right? We grow up and we want to please our parents. We want to please the people that have authority over us. And it's just easy to fall into that way of thinking of like, what is expected of me? What should I be doing? Instead of asking ourselves, what do I feel like is best for me? Because the absolute truth is, you are the only person who knows what is best for you because you are you and no one else is. People can have their opinions about your life. People can have wisdom to share. You can look to other people for guidance, but no one truly knows what is best for you besides you. It also reminds me, this whole concept reminds me of a Taylor Swift song, You're on Your Own, Kid. And when I first heard that song, and even just that idea that you're on your own, there's something about that to me that's depressing and isolating and feels very lonely and almost scary. And then there's another part of it that makes me feel confident and alive and excited and empowered. And, I think as I'm saying that, I'm thinking that's kind of how divorce feels, right? It feels so scary and isolating, and you're so nervous about the future, and you feel like, I mean, no one can go through that for you. Like, I remember how much pain I was in during my divorce, and people that loved me wanted to help, and they were helpful just to listen and to be there for me, but nobody could go through it for me. And that's the truth about our lives in general. No one can live your life for you. And I think, especially as women, we have been conditioned to sit back and let other people take care of us or give us a path to follow, tell us what to do, give us an expectation, and then we meet that expectation. That is just really a very common way that women have been conditioned to operate. But I don't really think that's best for us as women. And I think we're all on our own personal journeys with this, of course. But I think there comes a time in every woman's life where she has to decide, am I living for other people or society at large, or am I living for myself? Am I making choices that are aligned with who I am? Am I really asking myself and checking in with myself about whether or not what I'm doing is really what I want to do? I think it's easy to want someone else to come along to like lead us or guide us or hold our hand and tell us exactly what to do. And then we'll feel better. We'll feel more secure. But the truth is, you are on your own. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do life all by yourself. Obviously, we are made to be in community. We're made to have relationships. We are made to rely on each other and help each other as humans. But at the end of the day, you are the only one who really deals with the effects and with the repercussions and the consequences of all of the choices that you make. So I just want to really encourage you to embrace that fact. Embrace the fact that you are in charge of your own life. You get to decide how you want to live it. You get to decide who you're in a relationship with. You get to decide where you live or where you work. A lot of times I know it feels like we're locked in to a circumstance or a job or a relationship, or it feels like we don't have as much choice as we'd like to have. But I really just want to challenge you on that. There's really not very many circumstances in this day and age where we are actually without any choice at all. We have lots of choices, thankfully, in this time of history. So I just encourage you to take inventory of your life. Notice the way you spend your time, the way you spend your money, how many hours you spend working, and just ask yourself, is this the life I want to be living? And if it's not, then change it. You absolutely can change it. Going through a divorce is a huge change in and of itself. So I totally get it if right now you're like, I can't evaluate my life because I'm just trying to survive. And once you get out of that initial phase of healing where you feel like your head's above water, you're not drowning, you can stand on your own 2 feet, that's the best time for you to then ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like? And it's like one of the perfect times in your life when you've gone through a transition, when things are different, when you're rebuilding, this is the time to ask yourself what you're going to do with your one wild and precious life. And so I just encourage you to think about that, to believe that you can have the type of life you want. Believing you can have it is the first step. It's never too late. I don't care if you are 60 years old and you want to be a doctor, go for it. I mean, really, there's no age limit. But we tell ourselves that once we're past a certain age, we can't change careers. What? That doesn't even make sense. So I just encourage you to evaluate your life, decide what you want it to be like, and then take steps to make it happen. I know it's scary. It's scary to get out of your comfort zone. It's scary to try something new. It's scary to get rid of something or get out of your normal way of living. But it's also exhilarating. It's also exciting. It's also a huge opportunity. And if you need any help or support, if you want to talk through your ideas, if you want to figure out what you want to do with your life, working with me can be super helpful for that. I absolutely love helping my clients figure out what they want to do with their lives and then helping them create a concrete plan to make it happen. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. If you want to jump on a Zoom call with me, that is always an option. You can even just send me an email if you'd rather not meet. But in the meantime, I just encourage you to ask yourself that question. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So take good care of yourself and keep building a life that you love living after divorce. If you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, or unsure of how to move forward after your divorce, I've created a free guide just for you. It's called the 5 Stages of Divorce Recovery, and it lays out the roadmap to help you heal, rebuild, and love your life after divorce. This guide is packed with insights and actionable steps that will take you from grieving to embracing your future with confidence. Click the link in this podcast description, and the free guide will be delivered straight to your inbox.